Alexander had been married for 6 years when fate decided to play a mischievous hand, introducing him to the woman who would become his future mistress. It all began in the most unexpected way. While stuck in traffic, he accidentally rear-ended Amelia's car. Not exactly the smoothest move, but Alexander, ever the charmer, quickly attempted to make amends. To smooth things over, he reluctantly offered to take Amelia out for a bite at a nearby diner. To his surprise, she agreed. What started as a tense and awkward situation transformed into a surprising connection. Fast forward a few years, and Alexander and Amelia were the life of every party, cheerfully recounting their fateful accident to amuse friends. They'd laugh, with Amelia playfully accusing Alexander of orchestrating the entire mishap just to impress her. Eventually, Alexander persuaded Amelia, his beloved wife, to leave her exhausting 9-to-5 job and focus on her hobbies instead. Coming home to a happy wife and the welcoming aroma of dinner became one of Alexander's greatest joys. Though Amelia's hobbies brought in only modest earnings, they gave her immense satisfaction, and the couple was content in their simple, harmonious life. Amelia's birthday was approaching, a significant day for her. She typically preferred quiet celebrations, just the two of them enjoying a peaceful evening together. Her strained relationship with her family made such moments especially intimate. Amelia had married partly as a way to escape her overbearing mother, a woman rigidly stuck in outdated views. Over time, Amelia had grown tired of arguing with her mother and chose to drift away, seeking freedom when the opportunity arose. However, this year Amelia decided to break tradition. She wanted to celebrate big, gathering her friends for a lively party at a restaurant. The event turned out to be a hit. Surrounded by loved ones, Amelia felt a newfound warmth and joy, wondering why she hadn't embraced such celebrations sooner. After the party, Alexander smiled knowingly. He suspected that next year, she might return to her usual preference for an intimate evening, perhaps a fancy dinner or even a trip somewhere exciting. But for now, he was happy to see her radiant smile. As the festivities wrapped up, one of Amelia's friends handed her a ticket to a photography exhibit. Though she didn't recognize the photographer's name, her friend's enthusiastic praise for his work piqued her curiosity. Intrigued, Amelia decided to attend. The exhibit featured striking images of adults, each with an evocative and unique style. As Amelia moved from one piece to the next, she couldn't help but feel a little self-conscious, even blushing at times. Her quiet reflection was interrupted by a voice behind her. "That one got a hearty laugh out of me," the man said with a playful grin, pointing at one of the works she had been studying. Startled but intrigued, Amelia turned to respond. No, it's just that this exhibit is out of the ordinary. It's hard to put my feelings into words," she explained, her cheeks warming. The man smirked and extended his hand. "Well, let's see if I can help with that. I'm Lucas. Nice to meet you. Are you an artist?" "My apologies if I stepped on your toes," he said with a friendly smile. "I'm Amelia," she replied, shaking his outstretched hand. They exchanged a few pleasantries and began chatting about his work, art in general, and the creative world. Lucas spoke with enthusiasm, but he soon had to excuse himself to mingle with other guests. He couldn't afford to play favorites. Even as he walked away, Amelia found herself unable to look away. There was something captivating about him. Lucas stood out from the crowd with his striking fashion sense, a refreshing departure from the usual formal wear. His hair, tousled as if styled by the wind itself, added to his magnetic presence. Every so often, he would glance in her direction, and each time their eyes met, they exchanged small, knowing smiles. The whole experience felt foreign and thrilling to Amelia. She hadn't felt this kind of energy in years, this light-hearted excitement of fleeting glances and silent flirtations. It was as if she had been transported back to her teenage years, and she relished every moment. Lost in her thoughts, Amelia wandered to a nearby bench and sat down, her gaze drawn to a massive poster depicting two men and a woman in an abstract embrace. As she admired the artwork, Lucas appeared beside her, lowering himself onto the bench and handing her a glass of champagne. "No need to worry," he teased with a grin. "Nothing suspicious in here." Amelia chuckled, accepting the glass and taking a sip. They sat together in comfortable silence, savoring the champagne and the ambience of the exhibit. It wasn't long before the alcohol began to take its toll. Amelia realized she hadn't eaten anything all day, but politeness kept her from declining the second glass Lucas offered. "I have some more posters stored in the back," Lucas said suddenly, breaking the quiet. "Thought I'd hang them up another time. Want to take a look?" Curiosity got the better of her, and she nodded. Lucas led her to a small storage room tucked away from the main exhibit. Once inside, Amelia took in the space, dimly lit and intimate. She barely registered the sound of the lock clicking behind them before she turned and found herself face to face with Lucas. Their eyes met, and in the next moment, he leaned in, capturing her lips in a kiss. What began as a tentative gesture quickly grew into something more fervent. Before she knew it, they were tangled together on a nearby couch, his hands deftly unbuttoning his shirt. "I want something different," Amelia whispered, her voice barely audible over the pounding of her heart. Hearing her request, Lucas grinned knowingly. He pulled back slightly and offered her a moment to compose herself. "I'd like to capture this moment with you," he said, his voice low but intent. "Let's meet again when I'm back in town." As Lucas got dressed after their encounter, he persuaded Amelia to visit his studio the next day for a photo shoot. Hesitant at first, she eventually gave in, intrigued by his passion and charisma. The next day, Amelia arrived at the studio, her heart fluttering with a mix of excitement and unease. Lucas styled the shoot meticulously, his focus sharp, his tone persuasive. The session was intimate and daring, with him guiding her to undress gradually. First, she stripped down to her underwear, and with his encouragement, she removed even that. Afterward, as they parted ways, Lucas wrapped his arm around her reassuringly. He promised to send her the photos once they were processed. Amelia nodded, comforted by his words, but days passed, and the pictures never arrived. Instead, that evening, an email from an unfamiliar address landed in Alexander's inbox. The subject line was cryptic, and the message contained a handful of files and a terse note. "Your wife knows how to please men." Alexander's hands trembled as he clicked on the first file. The screen filled with an image of Amelia, completely undressed and posed provocatively. He stared at the photo, his heart pounding wildly. Each subsequent picture revealed more, igniting a storm of emotions: shock, betrayal, anger, and confusion. Snapping the laptop shut, he raced home, his thoughts in chaos. Bursting through the door, he confronted Amelia immediately, his voice trembling with urgency. "What is this? Tell me the truth." Amelia froze, her face pale as the gravity of the situation sank in. She stammered, trying to deflect his accusations, but her eyes betrayed her guilt. Alexander pressed harder, his frustration building until he erupted, his voice echoing through the house. Amelia broke down, her sobs racking her body as she confessed everything. The truth spilled out in fragments: how she met Lucas, how the photo shoot happened, and how far things had gone. Alexander stared at her, utterly bewildered. He couldn't reconcile this version of Amelia with the woman he thought he knew. Her gestures, her words, her familiar expressions, all seemed alien now, as though they belonged to a stranger. "You disgust me," he spat, his voice cold and final. Amelia sobbed harder, gasping out apologies. "I'm sorry. It was a mistake. I didn't mean for it to happen." But her words fell on deaf ears. Alexander had always been clear about his boundaries. This betrayal was unforgivable. He gave her one day to pack her belongings and leave. With no other option, Amelia returned to her parents' home. There, she faced a fresh wave of judgment and disappointment. Her mother was merciless, berating her for her actions and expressing disdain. "I expected nothing better from you," she said coldly. Amelia felt utterly isolated, drowning in regret. She tried reaching out to Lucas, desperate for answers or closure, but he didn't respond. Her messages went unanswered, her calls ignored. Forced to support herself, Amelia took on a job for the first time in years. Exhausted from long shifts, she would come home late at night, collapse onto her bed, and cry for everything she had lost: her marriage, her happiness, her sense of self. Every morning, she woke with the faint hope that it had all been a nightmare, that Alexander would still be by her side. But reality struck with cruel clarity each time she opened her eyes. Amelia's story became one of sorrow and regret, a painful reminder of how fleeting happiness can be when trust is broken and choices are made that cannot be undone.